Well, I just finished my last Herceptin treatment after a long year of them, and I gotta say I've got mixed emotions about it because as arduous as it's all been, this place, Princess Margaret Cancer Center, is an incredible temple of healing, and I'm gonna miss all the angels that work here, but in the meantime, I'm gonna celebrate.
That's fashion journalist Jeanne Beker in a video she posted on her Instagram feed 2 weeks ago, ringing the bell at the hospital in Toronto where she had her last infusion of the cancer drug Herceptin. And while some people prefer to keep the details of an illness private, after her diagnosis last year, Beker has shared pictures and video at every step of her cancer journey for her tens of thousands of social media followers. And even while she admits the whole ringing the bell thing was kind of hokey, she did want to show people this important milestone because so many of her followers are living with the disease or know somebody who is.
Not all of them had happy endings. A lot of people started to share their personal stories of whether it was their journey or their wives or their sisters or their mothers. But all of them were really giving me that whole, cheerleader boost.
I'm Ellen Besner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Tuesday, June the 22nd, 2023. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News, sponsored by Metropia. Beker's long and successful career actually started out in Toronto's Bathurst Manor neighborhood. She's the daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors, and she credits her late mother, Branya, for some of her early fashion sense. Branya sewed all their clothes in the latest styles. Beker started out as a child actor. She later trained in Paris to be a mime, but her big break came in the early 1980s in Toronto on City TV, including on Much Music. And her fashion television show made her an international celebrity. It aired for 27 years, and it took viewers behind the scenes to the runways of New York and Paris in Fashion Week. Beker interviewed everybody from Karl Lagerfeld to Naomi Campbell, Valentino, and Anna Wintour. Then, with a handful of books under her belt, her own clothing lines, a podcast, a weekly show on the Shopping Channel, and the Order of Canada, Beker was still running full tilt and preparing to celebrate her 70th birthday. Then a routine mammogram changed everything. Beker turned her own cancer story into a public conversation, even the scary parts, including showing her in the hospital and her exhaustion when she wore a special cooling cap on her head, and yes, her hair loss too. And through it all, her fans admired how somebody who's made an entire career focusing on appearance could be in a blue hospital gown and still look fabulous. Now she's feeling better, although still tired at times, and her medical odyssey isn't finished. Doctors have to keep a close eye on her heart for dangerous side effects. We caught up with Beker at her cottage in Warkworth, Ontario. It's near London, where she shares it with her partner Ian and their dogs.
Oh, Ellen, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, it's great to have you. I know the CJN has covered your career for many years, but I've never had the pleasure. And we're speaking because just recently, maybe a few days ago, you rang the bell at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center and posted the whole video on your last treatment for last infusion, I guess. And so I wanted to congratulate you on that and also talk a little bit about what that was like. So can we start off with that?
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, I'm still on a high from that and feeling really good and positive, as I have actually been through this whole cancer journey. Was diagnosed almost exactly a year ago from where I am today. And it was like the biggest shock of all because, my mother never had breast cancer. My sister didn't have breast cancer. I don't know because I had a lot of relatives perish in the Holocaust. So I never knew my grandmothers and if they ever would have had breast cancer or any of my aunts really. However, I've learned now that anyone can get breast cancer. Only, maybe something like 15% of people that get breast cancer have a familial history of it. So really, you've just got to be on your toes and be looking out for this. And I was going for my regular mammograms every 2 years. That's what they told me I should do every 2 years. I think that was wrong because I have dense breasts and you have to go not only every year, but you have to have more than just a mammogram. But that's a whole other podcast. To make a long story short, I went for my routine mammogram. I felt 100%. I didn't think anything was wrong. It wasn't like I felt a lump or anything. And I got a call a few days later. Oh, we found a mass. And it was like, a mass? Yeah, it's almost like 3 centimeters. And you better come in for a biopsy and an ultrasound. And, biopsy is one of the scariest words in the English language next to cancer, which is really scary. Then I went in, and then the doctor there said, oh, we'll also send you for an MRI. And a few days after that, I got a call from my doctor that I had invasive carcinoma, breast cancer. Triple positive was the type of breast cancer I have, because I've also learned there are many different types of breast cancer one can have. And mine wasn't necessarily a good one. However, there is not that any of them are good. There's a fabulous drug called Herceptin that has saved the lives of thousands and thousands of women. And that was something that I also started at the time that I started my chemo. So I went into chemotherapy late June of last year, did that, 12 rounds of that. Then I waited till October and had my surgery. A lumpectomy is what I opted for. And then I had 15 rounds of radiation after that. And I was continuing on the Herceptin every 3 weeks. That's why I recently got a chance to ring that bell again. And I just found it to be a journey, as daunting as it was, that was rife with silver linings. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about people and about humanity. I learned so much about the medical system. I learned so much about compassion and caring and what it means to just keep going, no matter what. Just keep going and take life one day at a time and really appreciate everything. Not that I was, a grateful person before that, but boy, am I ever grateful now, when you really start thinking that you may only have a limited time left and, what's going to happen and how's this going to work and what's going to happen with your kids and your partner and your homes and your life. Early on, Ellen, because I went public with this right from the get-go. I thought it was my responsibility. I mean, I have a platform. I want to communicate. My life's always been an open book. Very important for me to share my story. So I did. And within a couple of days, my Instagram following doubled. I mean, it went from...
Well, you have like 50,000 now.
Yeah, it went from 25,000 to 50,000. And now I'm, almost at 55,000. It's incredible. The number of women and men who have followed me because of my #cancer journey footnote. It was just so rewarding because the stories that, I started to hear back that came back to me were so heart-swelling. And then I was so lucky to be treated at Princess Margaret Cancer Center, which is one of the top 5 in the world. And I chose to look at it as a temple of healing. So Confucius once said, wherever you go with all your heart. And that's how I chose to see this journey. Not like, oh, I got to go to Princess Margaret again today, or, oh, I have to go through this journey that, hopefully it'll get me better, but who knows? And I just decided, no, I'm in this hook, line, and sinker, and I'm going to go through it in the most positive way possible. I'm going to stay in the light. I'm going to put fear on the table and leave it there. I'm a survivor because my parents were survivors. That's in my DNA. And they certainly taught me a lot. And in a funny kind of way, I think prepared me incredibly for this journey that I've been on.
One of the things I think that your dad, often, you like to talk about this quote about his famous motto. I wondered how he's sitting on your shoulder when you're going through all of this.
It's a great way of putting it. Yeah, definitely. Sitting on my shoulder, whispering in my ear 24/7, his motto, don't be afraid and never give up. And that's totally what saw him and my mother through the war. They were on the run the whole time, young lovers from the same shtetl. My father had deserted the Polish army when the war broke out, realizing that the Germans would find out that he was Jewish and just kill him anyway. And and my mother hid in a bunker with her whole family. 9 members of her family suffocated. She was the sole survivor. Their story is incredible. Their book, which was wonderfully published by the Azraeli Foundation, is called Joy Runs Deeper. But, they definitely raised me in this way where, listen, back in those days, my parents came here after the war. They really had nothing, really nothing. A few things in this big wooden trunk that now is on display at the Pier 21 Museum. And that motto of not being afraid and not giving up, being fearless and tenacious. And they built this wonderful new life for themselves. And then I was born in 1952. How it affected me now, in retrospect, I think, you know what? That was a damn good lesson in life. What I learned from them, I could never have gotten that education anywhere else. And they really instilled in me this understanding of the way the world works, and just so much about humanity and how to judge character, and how to be tough and how to be resilient and how to just keep putting one foot in front of the other, because there is no option.
You mentioned dense breasts, and it's a thing that's affected myself, not personally, but very close to me recently. And we didn't even know about what dense breast is. My doctor never told us, me personally, about it until this happened. And then I became very much involved in learning about it. Most Canadian women do not know about dense breasts. Is your journey also partly to start educating and lobbying for women to get the same treatment here that the Americans are now saying, we need to do this earlier, saving lives?
Well, there's no question. If you know that there is an injustice that's being done to women by the fact that a lot of their doctors aren't telling them what to do. A lot of their doctors aren't encouraging them. A lot of their doctors are saying, no, you don't need an ultrasound, or you don't need an MRI, or you don't, I understand that the medical system is like totally overwhelmed right now. I mean, you can't even get a GP. I mean, it's just like absolutely horrifying. And now with more and more women start demanding these tests, there's going to have to be a great cash injection to just train these technologists how to, give mammograms and read mammograms, and to say nothing about the equipment necessary for these tests. And, this is a problem, a big federal problem. It's also provincial because every province has different guidelines. I'm just learning and there are different breast densities too. Like I'm in the C classing, and there's, A is like nothing, but there's B, and then there's C, that's me, and then there's D even. And it has nothing to do with the size of your breast. Like a lot of people think, oh, you've got big boobs, you've got dense breasts. Like, no, it has nothing to do with that. You can have this very small breasts and they can still be dense. I firmly believe now that, because I said earlier, my tumor was almost 3 centimeters, and I'd been for a mammogram like 2 years before. If I would have gone for an additional ultrasound or MRI, they certainly probably would have found something growing. Maybe not, maybe it was just that aggressive.
You were always energetic before. I know people who are taking cancer treatments and have had lumpectomies, and the drugs make them very, very tired. So how do you keep your energy up?
That is the question. And honestly, I wasn't that wiped out even during chemotherapy. I started feeling a little more fatigued and very achy, to the point that I feel like I aged about 10 years. And yeah, I feel a bit stiff in the morning, but then I, just go out for a big long walk with my dog, or, just try to keep moving, because we got to just keep moving. And I usually feel a little bit better. So yes, it has zapped me of some of my energy. I also feel a kind of a brain foggy thing, like, is my brain really functioning as well as it is? Well, it better be, because I got a wonderful book deal with Simon & Schuster, not about my cancer journey. But the book is a memoir. I've already written 2 memoirs. Hey, that's pretty good for a 70-year-old. I still thought I've got a little more storytelling in me. But this book is told through the lens of fashion, really. We all have these precious pieces in our lives, pieces of our wardrobe, pieces that we get sentimentally attached to, pieces that we hang on to sometimes for no good reason, because they don't fit us anymore, but we just can't bear to part with them. And very often these pieces, whether they're pieces from our jewelry box or in the back of our closet, these pieces remind us of people or we remember where we wore them at a certain amount of time. So I've gathered these incredible pieces, or at least I have pictures of myself in the garment, and I'm telling stories about my life and about the incredible people that I've met, some famous, some not, but all that kind of taught me something, or stories that really resonate with hopefully other people where, you'll glean a life lesson. That's all good. And I find if you have something, you ask me, how do I keep my energy up? If you have something to focus on, that really helps. Some days I feel a bit, I'm feeling tired and lazy. So I go into the kitchen and make a big batch of cookies. Just do something, get yourself up and, off the couch. And, sometimes, it's great to read, but if you're really tired, you'll probably fall asleep reading. Great to watch all these absorbing, series on Netflix or whatever. But again, that I don't know how far that gets you, but physically, I feel you just got to get up and do stuff. And that's what I do.
Would you have a humongous closet specially built in any of your homes?
Darling, I live in a 3-story house in Rosedale, besides, sharing another home with my partner here in Northumberland County. And I have a lot of closets in my city house. And I've lived in that house since 1995. And when my husband left in 1998, only 3 years after we got I guess, again, trying to find the silver linings in these traumatic things that happen, it was like, yay, I've got more closet space. So I have a lot of stuff. I mean, for many years, remember the old days of Hadassah Bazaar? I mean, and everyone got to, they were donating their clothes, and that was such a great thing. And then for almost 15 years, I think I did something at Gilda's Club in Toronto, called Jeanne Beker Opens Her Heart and Closet for Gilda's Club. And it was a wonderful sale that we did once a year of all my old stuff that I wasn't wearing. And then after a while, I got other media friends to donate their clothes as well. And it was just wonderful. But then because of the pandemic, that stopped. And then Gilda's Club sadly moved out of the gorgeous clubhouse that they had in downtown Toronto where we'd have the sale, and they're just all virtual now. So I haven't been donating my clothes to these causes. They're just, a lot of them are just sitting there. And I am about to do a sale with a designer resale shop for some of the higher end things. And we're doing it as a fundraiser for breast cancer. Maybe one day we'll do some kind of exhibit. Certainly with the launch of my new book, it would make sense to do that kind of an exhibition. I think that would be great fun.
So can you say what one of your favorite pieces is that you're hanging on to and what the story is?
Well, I don't want to tell really too many stories now, but I have everything from the dress that Karl Lagerfeld gifted me with when I was 7 months pregnant in his couture studio on the eve of his couture show, to the pair of black velvet bell bottoms that I wore at a Madonna interview, and she was wearing the exact same ones. So that was like, to the beautiful lace dress that was my mom's favorite back in the early 70s that she had her German dressmaker make for her, that I resurrected about 35 years later and wore to a bar mitzvah myself and danced the hora in it, and was just overwhelmed with joy thinking about how many horas that dress had seen. And, because my mother wore that dress a lot to many of these affairs.
I see that you're wearing on, I think it's your left wrist, a red, is that a Kabbalah string?
A bendela, they call it the bendela, right? This is my daughter Joey crocheted this little string, and we wear them in our family, my girls and I, because my mother very much believed in that, as a lot of people from the old country, they didn't want the getoig. And even when I was pregnant with both girls, my mother insisted that I tie a little red ribbon on my bra strap, which I wore the entire duration of both pregnancies. So, yeah.
I know that well. You mentioned your mom. I read that she was a trained beautician and that your dad opened a factory making footwear in Canada. Were they very fashionable people?
My mother was incredibly fashionable. I mean, she didn't have the money to spend on designer labels, but she had subscriptions to Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, and, religiously pored over those issues all the time with my sister and myself. And she got a sewing machine in 1959, the year that we moved to the suburbs. My father gifted her with a turquoise Brothers sewing machine, and she made all our clothes. She would go down to Stitsky's, that great fabric store that used to be down at Bloor and Bathurst, and buy wonderful fabrics. And my sister and I would dream up these cool, mod clothes, and she'd make them all for us and make gorgeous clothes for herself as well. My dad always said to me, it's very important how you dress, because that's the first thing that people see about you, and that's how they're going to judge you. He used to take me to a lot of these great wholesale places because he had connections, because he was working down in the Schmutta business of the garment area with his little slipper factory.
It's an issue now, especially of ethics, as well as the human rights issues, of course, impacting where clothes are made, people making maybe choices on not having fast fashion anymore.
Absolutely.
Do people in the high fashion industry here that you know of actually do things like that, or that doesn't play into their choices?
Oh, no. I think the biggest conversation in fashion right now is sustainability. I mean, it's on every, even every high fashion house is conscious of it and is doing their bit to either try and produce goods that are, some of them upcycled or recycled, using recycled fabrications. And, everyone is on that bandwagon now happily. Well, not everyone, but most people. And I think in order to really be considered, a solid citizen, one, has to somehow partake in that exercise. I mean, we absolutely have to change the way that we're making fashion and the way that we're consuming fashion and the way that we're, putting it back out there. I mean, this whole idea of throwing out your clothes into landfill is just horrifying. I mean, the fashion industry and the textile industry is one of the biggest pollutants of the planet, and done an incredible amount of damage. And I don't know if it ever will really be able to be fixed in that way. And still, even though so many of these places, I mean, some of these stores, these fast fashion store, have initiated these programs where you bring in your old clothes and they'll give you a certain amount of money, or they'll give you a coupon, so then you can come back and buy something new from them. And then they take the clothes away, and I don't know what they do with them, upcycle them hopefully, or recycle the fabrics. It's heartening to see that. A lot of young people, too, are becoming conscious of that. And my daughters, for example, almost only shop vintage. I mean, that's all they're interested in wearing, vintage.
Well, if I was your children, first of all, it would be amazing, because my dad was a lawyer, so I didn't really need legal advice when I was in high school and needing fashion. But so that wasn't really cool. Later on in life, it was very useful. But not having the cool Howard Star jeans or construction boots or painter pants as I grew up, and that was what we needed to buy to be cool in high school. I'm sure your kids had the best clothes of anyone in their group.
Well, only because my kids always just had great taste. It wasn't like I was buying them stuff, or I would ask and still do often ask their opinion about what, especially my daughter Joey, who's just got whoa. I mean, she styles herself. I mean, she's a musician, so she styles herself for her own videos, and she's just got the most exquisite sense of style. And my daughter Becky, who's got this gorgeous bohemian sense of style too. She's an artist as well, a filmmaker, an illustrator, and a farmer. So the two girls inspire me to no end, and I learn more about style from them, I think, than I could ever have taught them.
Can you sew?
I used to make my clothes. I haven't in years. I do make scarves. I knit a lot. But I used to make clothes and had a sewing machine. Actually, when I was living in Newfoundland, I made quite a lot of my own clothes.
It's been an honor to meet you.
Oh, Ellen, so great. Thanks. I really enjoyed it.
Just this week, the Canadian Health Task Force, which oversees setting the screening guidelines for breast cancer, say they're going to review at what age a woman should be having mammograms and how often, and they're expected to release their decision in the fall. And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, sponsored by Metropia, Integrity, Community, Quality, and Customer Care. Today's listener shout-out goes to Barry Cutler. And that's the CJN Daily for this week. Our producer is Zach Kaufman. Our executive producer is Michael Freeman. Our managing editor is Mark Weisblatt. And the music for the show is by Dov Beck-Levine. And if you have comments on anything you've heard, or you've got ideas for people or stories that we should cover, write to us at ebessner@thecjn.ca. Thanks for listening.